Our infinite runner game is now feature complete, but there are two more things we can do to really bring the whole thing together: some background music and a main menu. Let's start by adding background music to the game. We want this music to play as soon as the game starts, and we want it to loop. One thing we don't want, however, is for the music to suddenly stop and start again when the player dies and restarts the scene. So in order to achieve this, we'll use what's called an auto-load. Auto-loads allow you to automatically load scenes or scripts as soon as the game loads. This is great for things such as always having access to a particular script, such as a global inventory or game manager, or, in our case, always having a looping piece of background music. First, let's create a new scene. Choose Other Node, and just Node as the root. Then, save this scene as music.tscn under the Scenes folder. Next, we'll add an audio stream player and drag in the background music sound to the stream property, and check the Auto Play property. Now, come up to the Project menu and choose Project Settings. From here, go to the Auto Load tab. At the top, you'll see a path input and a button with a folder icon. Click this and choose the music.tscn file from the Scenes folder, and then press Add. If we close the Project Settings menu now and play the game, you'll notice that our background music has automatically started playing. This is it, the final stretch. Let's add a main menu that tells players the name of the game and gives them an option to start or exit. Start by creating a new scene, choosing 2D Scene as the root node and renaming it to Menu. Then save the scene as menu.tscn in the Scenes folder. First of all, drag out the background static.png sprite into the scene. Set its transform position to 940 on the X and 540 on Y, and set its scale to 1.5. This should fill the background of our menu with our game's background scenery. Next, we'll create a control node and call it UI. Select the UI node and set its transform size to 1920 by 1080. Underneath the UI node, add a margin container node. This will allow us to define a bit of padding for our UI so that it doesn't stick to the edges of the screen. Select the margin container, click the Anchors button and choose Full Rect to expand it to the full size of our UI. Next, open the Theme Overrides Constant section and set each of the 4 margin properties to 20. Inside our margin container, we'll add a VBox container. This node lays out its children vertically, which is perfect for our menu. Under the VBox container, we'll add our main title by adding a label node. Give it a text value of Raptor Run, or feel free to get creative and come up with a name of your own. And set the horizontal alignment to center. Next, go to the Theme Overrides and set the font outline to black, size 7, and the font size to 128. Next, we'll add another margin container as a child of our VBox container. Click the vertical button in the viewport menu and choose Fill and Expand to make this element expand to fill the rest of the available vertical space. Now, change the Theme Overrides constant margin top value to 100. What we're doing here is creating a gap between our title and the buttons that we're about to add. Inside our second margin container, let's add another VBox container to house our start and exit buttons. Inside this VBox container, let's add a button node and call it Start Button. Give it a text value of Start Game. Choose Alignment Center and then click the horizontal button in the viewport menu and choose Shrink Center. Next, go to the Theme Overrides and set the font size to 64. Duplicate this button and call it Exit Button, then change the text to Exit. Finally, we'll add a script to power these buttons. Right-click on the VBox container that contains our buttons and attach a script called menu.gd and save it in the scripts folder. First, grab a reference to both our buttons. Then, inside the Ready function, let's connect to the button press signal for both buttons. Inside the Start Button Pressed handler, we'll get a reference to the current scene tree using getTree, and then call the Change Scene to File function, passing it the path to our main scene. This will exit the main menu and transition to the gameplay scene. For our Exit Button handler, we'll again get the scene tree using getTree, but instead we'll call the Quit function to exit the game. The final thing to do now is to open up our project settings, go to the Application Run section, and change our main scene to our new menu scene. Save everything and hit the play button to test out your work.